Hello. Have you ever truly stopped to wonder why you clicked on this video right now at this exact moment in your life? What if I told you there are no accidents, no mere coincidences, and that your presence here is part of something far bigger than you might imagine? Think about that for just a second. Out of the millions of videos available, something guided you to this one. Was it simple curiosity, pure intuition, or perhaps a deeper calling from within you, whispering that this message holds exactly what you need to hear today? The truth is, most people go through life believing they are simply at the mercy of circumstances. They wait for luck to strike, hoping that one day things will magically fall into place. They watch opportunities pass by, they see others succeeding, and they can't help but wonder why abundance seems to favor everyone else but them. Has this ever happened to you? That frustrating feeling of being stuck, of watching your dreams from a distance, as if there's an invisible barrier separating you from the life you truly desire? But before we go any deeper, please take a moment to hit the like button and let me know in the comments where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the globe. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. Now here's what most people don't realize. You didn't stumble upon this video by chance. The universe doesn't operate through random events. When your consciousness begins to awaken, when something inside you starts to shift, it creates pathways that might look like coincidence, but are actually divinely orchestrated moments. You were led here because a part of you, perhaps a part you've forgotten, already knew you needed this exact experience, this specific vibration, these precise words. Stay with me until the very end, because what you're about to discover might completely shift the way you see yourself and your relationship with reality. For years, maybe even decades, you've been living as a spectator in your own life. You've been taught to observe, to react, to adapt to whatever comes your way. You've learned to accept what you see as the final truth, to believe that external circumstances define who you are and what you can achieve. But what if everything you've been taught about manifestation, about abundance, about creating the life you desire has been backwards? What if the reason you haven't received what you want isn't because you're not worthy, not because you haven't worked hard enough, and not because the universe is testing you, but simply because you've forgotten the most fundamental truth about who you really are? There's a great remembering happening right now in this very moment, and you are part of it. You're not here to learn something new. You're here to remember something ancient, something that's been dormant within you, waiting for the right moment to awaken. This isn't about mere motivation, or forcing positive thinking, or repeating affirmations that feel empty. This is about understanding the actual mechanics of how consciousness creates reality, and why you specifically have been called to this moment. Something is shifting inside you, and whether you consciously recognize it or not, your entire being knows that you are ready to stop being an observer and finally step into your role as the creator you've always been. I know that might sound bold, maybe even controversial to some, but please hear me out. Everything you're experiencing right now, your bank account, your relationships, your career, your health, none of it is happening to you randomly. It's not punishment. It's not bad luck. And it is definitely not your permanent reality. What you are seeing is simply a reflection, a delayed echo of thoughts, beliefs, and internal states you held in the past without even realizing it. This is the hidden truth that changes everything. Reality is not solid. It's not fixed. It's not something external that you have to fight against or surrender to. Reality is responsive, malleable, and obedient. Even the world you see around you right now is showing you yesterday's inner world, last week's assumptions, last month's fears. It's like looking at a mirror and being shocked by what you see, forgetting that the mirror has no choice but to show you what's standing in front of it. The incredible revelation here is that most people spend their entire lives trying to change the reflection instead of changing themselves. They look at scarcity and try to manipulate money. They see closed doors and exhaust themselves knocking harder. They experience lack and desperately search for external solutions. But here is what shifts everything. The moment you stop accepting what you see as the final word and start recognizing it as merely feedback from your past consciousness, you reclaim a power that has been yours all along. This is the pivotal point of transformation, and not everyone reaches it. Only those who have endured enough, who have tried everything else, who have finally grown tired of the old way of living, arrive at this crossroads where they're ready to say, enough. If this resonated, make sure to subscribe to the channel. There is so much more we are going to explore about consciousness and manifestation, And I don't want you to miss it. And when you do say enough, not from desperation, but from a deep, sincere knowing that you deserve more, that you're ready for what's rightfully yours, something extraordinary happens. The universe doesn't ignore you, doesn't make you wait. It responds immediately. But here's the twist that most manifestation teachings get wrong. The money you seek, the opportunities you desire, the transformation you're craving, these aren't things you're requesting from some distant cosmic vending machine. They are actually calls the universe is making to you, reminding you of who you really are beneath all the conditioning, beneath all the false beliefs about limitation and unworthiness. Think about that for a moment. What if your desire for abundance isn't you asking the universe for something, but rather the universe asking you to remember your true nature? What if every urge you feel for something better, every dissatisfaction with your current circumstances, every dream that refuses to die inside you, is actually divine intelligence nudging you back toward your authentic power? This completely flips the script on how manifestation works. You're not begging for scraps. You're not hoping to get lucky. You're not even manifesting in the traditional sense. You are remembering, reclaiming, and returning to a state of being that was always meant to be yours. Now, I want to go even deeper into this because understanding this intellectually is one thing, but actually living from this place of knowing is where the real magic happens. There is a specific internal shift that needs to occur. A way of holding yourself differently in consciousness that changes everything around you without you having to force or fight or manipulate anything in the physical world. Write in the comments, "I'm ready to remember," if this is resonating with you right now. The shift I'm talking about starts with understanding one fundamental principle that society has worked very hard to make you forget. Abundance is not a reward for good behavior. It's not something you earn through struggle. It's not a prize handed out to the lucky few who happen to be born into the right circumstances or who crack some secret code. Abundance is your natural state. It is the default setting of consciousness itself. Every human being walking this earth was designed to thrive, to expand, to experience fullness in every area of life. But somewhere along the journey, most people forgot this truth. And it's not really their fault. From the moment we're born, we're bombarded with messages about scarcity. We're taught to compete, to worry, to protect what little we have because there supposedly isn't enough to go around. We're shown bills that need paying, deadlines that need meeting, expectations that need fulfilling. We're conditioned to believe that our worth is determined by our job title, our bank balance, or what others think of us. Layer by layer, year by year, the noise of survival drowns out the quiet knowing that we are inherently abundant beings. We start believing that our identity is something the world assigns to us, rather than something our consciousness creates. Think about how much energy you've spent trying to prove yourself, trying to be enough, trying to measure up to standards that were never yours to begin with. Think about all the decisions you've made from a place of fear instead of freedom, all the opportunities you didn't take because you didn't feel worthy or ready or qualified. This is what happens when we forget who we are. We start living defensively, reactively, desperately trying to survive in a world that we perceive as hostile or indifferent. And survival mode is the loudest thing there is. It drowns out intuition. It silences inner wisdom. It creates so much mental and emotional noise that we can't hear the truth that's been whispering to us all along. But here is what is beautiful, and what you need to understand right now. You didn't lose your power. It never went anywhere. The truth of who you are, the abundance that is your birthright, the creative force that lives within you, none of it abandoned you during those years of struggle and confusion. It simply waited. It waited patiently, quietly in the background of your awareness, knowing that eventually you would grow tired enough of the false identity, frustrated enough with limitation, and ready enough for something real. And that moment is now. Right now, as you're hearing these words, something inside you is waking up. You can feel it, can't you? That sense of recognition, like you're remembering something you always knew but had forgotten how to access. This isn't about learning new information or adopting new techniques. This is about removing the layers of conditioning that have been blocking your natural flow of abundance. It's about making a decision not just with your mind but with your entire being, that you are done living small, done accepting scraps, and done pretending you're anything less than a powerful creator. The impact of this decision ripples through every aspect of your existence. Because when you remember your true nature, when you reconnect with that silent truth that's been waiting for you, everything begins to reorganize itself around this new understanding. Drop a comment saying, "I remember now," if you're feeling this shift happening inside you. The beautiful revelation in all of this is that you didn't actually come here looking for money. I know that might sound strange because maybe you clicked on this video hoping to learn how to attract more abundance, how to manifest financial breakthrough, how to finally experience the prosperity you've been chasing. But the truth behind the scenes is much more profound. What you're really seeking isn't the money itself. It's the consciousness that naturally attracts money. You're not looking for miracles to happen to you. You're looking for the internal state that produces miracles as a natural byproduct of who you are. This is a crucial distinction that changes everything. Most people are focused entirely on the external outcome. They want the bank account to grow, the opportunity to appear, the door to open. And there's nothing wrong with wanting those things. But when you're only focused on the external, you're trying to force the effect without addressing the cause. You're attempting to change the reflection without changing what's being reflected. But when you shift your attention to your internal state, when you become more concerned with who you're being than what you're getting, something miraculous begins to happen. The external world has no choice but to reorganize itself around your new internal reality, because nothing can resist the command of a consciousness that remembers its origin and power. This is where the real transformation occurs. Not in your circumstances, but in your relationship to yourself. And here's what you're probably noticing if you're honest. Your old identity doesn't fit anymore. It's like wearing clothes that have become too tight, too restrictive, too uncomfortable. That version of you who accepted limitation, who played small, who waited for permission, who believed you were at the mercy of external forces, that identity is suffocating you now. Something inside you is desperately seeking expansion. Room to breathe, permission to become who you actually are rather than who you've been pretending to be. This feeling of outgrowing yourself is actually one of the most powerful signals you can receive. It means you're ready. It means the old programming is losing its grip. It means you've reached the threshold where staying the same is more painful than changing. And this is precisely the moment when you stop being a passive observer of your life and return to being the active creator of it. The victim mentality that says, "Life happens to me," begins to dissolve, and in its place emerges a completely different understanding. I am the one who dictates my circumstances. Not through force or manipulation or endless action, but through the simple yet profound act of assuming a new state of being. The journey from observer to creator isn't about gaining something you don't have. It's about shedding the false layers that have been covering up what was always true. It's about making the decision to no longer tolerate the old story, the old excuses, the old justifications for why things are the way they are. Because the hidden truth is that every justification you've been using to explain your current reality is actually the very thing keeping you locked in it. When you defend your limitations, you strengthen them. When you explain why you can't have what you want, you create more evidence for why you can't have it. Leave a comment with, "I choose expansion," if you're ready to step into this new identity. The reason this message found you at this exact moment isn't random. And it's not just good timing. You're here because you've reached a specific point in your journey where you're no longer willing to spend your days reacting to whatever life throws at you. You're done being tossed around by circumstances, responding to problems, adjusting to limitations, and accommodating scarcity. There's a shift happening in your mindset right now. A transition from the reactive state that most people live in their entire lives, to the commanding presence that creators embody naturally. And I want you to really feel the difference between these two states because it's everything. Reacting means the world acts first and you respond. Commanding means you decide first and the world responds. Reacting keeps you in a perpetual state of defense, always trying to fix what's broken, always one step behind. Commanding places you at the center of your experience, where you assume the state that naturally attracts money, opens doors, and creates opportunities without you having to chase them down. This isn't about arrogance or forcing things to happen. It's about understanding that you are ready to receive today. Not because you're hoping someone out there will finally give you what you deserve, but because you're finally willing to allow it into your experience. Go ahead and subscribe if you want more content like this. We're diving deep into how consciousness creates reality, and you'll want to be here for what's next. That last part is crucial. Most people think they want abundance, but deep down they're blocking it with beliefs they don't even know they're carrying. They're unconsciously rejecting the very thing they consciously desire because their internal state doesn't match the frequency of what they're asking for. But you've been doing the inner work, even if you didn't realize it. Every challenge you faced, Every disappointment you've endured, every moment of frustration has been preparing you for this breakthrough. Behind the scenes of your visible life, something has been organizing itself, aligning itself, getting ready for the moment when you would finally be ready to step into a completely different version of yourself. This is what people don't understand about how the universe operates. When it calls you, when it guides you to a specific message, experience, or revelation, it's not testing you to see if you're worthy. It's not making you jump through hoops or prove yourself. The call itself is confirmation that something has already been prepared for you. The opportunities already exist. The abundance is already available. The path is already clear. What needed to happen first was an internal shift, a recalibration of your consciousness, a remembering of your true position in this reality. And that's happening right now as you're hearing these words and feeling something stir inside you. From this moment forward, understand that everything is changing within you. The old patterns are dissolving. The old beliefs are losing their power. The old identity that kept you small, scared, and stuck is falling away. And as this internal transformation unfolds, everything around you will inevitably change, because the external world is nothing more than a mirror reflecting back the state of your consciousness. This is where your real abundance begins. Not when the money shows up in your account, but right here in this moment when you finally come home to yourself. When you remember that you were never separate from the abundance you've been seeking. Type, "I am coming home," if you're feeling this truth resonating deep within you. What you need to understand right now, what will completely transform how you see your current circumstances, is this: everything you're experiencing in this moment is an echo. It's not new. It's not happening in real time. What you're seeing, what you're living through, what's showing up in your bank account, your relationships, and your opportunities, all of it is the consequence of internal states you held in the past, often without even being aware of them. Those bills sitting on your desk right now? They're echoes of thoughts you had weeks or months ago about scarcity and lack. Those closed doors you keep running into? They're reflections of beliefs you carried about not being ready or not being enough. The limitations you're facing today are simply old recordings playing out, showing you what was programmed into your consciousness before you knew how any of this worked. And here's where your mind is going to try to fight back. It's going to point to your current reality and say, "But look at this. Look at these very real problems, these very real bills, these very real obstacles." Your logical mind wants to use what you see as proof that you're stuck, that nothing can change, that your situation is solid and fixed. But this is the illusion that keeps most people trapped their entire lives. They treat their current circumstances as if they have independent power, as if they're entities with their own life force that can dictate the future. But they are not. They are shadows. And shadows, no matter how dark or convincing they appear, have absolutely no power of their own. Think about what a shadow actually is. It's not a thing. It's the absence of light, a silhouette cast by something that blocks the light source. A shadow can't create anything, can't move on its own. It simply reflects the position of whatever is casting it. Your current reality works exactly the same way. Nothing in your experience just appeared out of nowhere spontaneously. Everything you're seeing is a shadow being cast by your consciousness, repeating patterns you projected at some point in your journey, when you didn't yet understand that you were the projector, not the screen. When you truly grasp this, not just as an intellectual concept, but as an emotional knowing that settles into your bones, everything shifts. You stop fighting with your circumstances because you realize there's nothing in the physical world to fight. The physical world doesn't initiate anything. It can't. It's incapable of creating. It only responds. It's a faithful servant waiting for instructions from your consciousness, and it will continue displaying whatever you keep feeding it through your dominant internal states. This revelation completely changes the game because it means you've been fighting shadows while ignoring the light source. You've been trying to rearrange the reflection while standing in the same position. The impact of understanding this is profound because it removes all the power from external circumstances and returns it to where it always belonged, within you. Those obstacles aren't real in the way you thought they were. That scarcity isn't a permanent condition. Those closed doors aren't final judgments. They're all just echoes, delays, old footage playing out from a consciousness that no longer matches who you're becoming. Right, I see through the shadows if this is clicking into place for you. Imagine for a moment that you walk into a movie theater, and you don't like what's playing on the screen. Maybe the story is dark. Maybe the characters are struggling. Maybe nothing is going the way you hoped it would. What would you do? Would you walk up to the screen and start yelling at the images? Would you try to physically push the actors in a different direction or erase the scenes you don't like with your hands? Of course not, because you understand that the screen is just displaying something that's being projected from somewhere else. If you want to change what you're seeing, you have to go to the projection room. You have to change the film itself, the source that's creating the images. Your life works exactly the same way. Yet most people spend their entire existence trying to fix the screen. They're fighting with their bank balance, arguing with their circumstances, desperately trying to manipulate situations and control outcomes, all while the same film keeps playing in the projection room of their consciousness. They're exhausting themselves trying to alter the projection instead of understanding that the projector is what needs attention. And your consciousness, your beliefs, your assumptions, your dominant internal states, that's the projection room. That's where the real power lies. That's where the film is being selected and broadcast into your physical reality. The revelation here is that what you're experiencing right now, all the struggle and limitation and closed doors, it's just the old film. It's the outdated reel that's been running on repeat, because nobody went into the projection room to change it. That scarcity you're seeing? It exists because at some point in your journey, you accepted thoughts of lack and fear. Those obstacles blocking your path? They appeared externally because you assumed them internally first, often without even realizing you were doing it. This is the hidden truth that changes everything about how you approach transformation. People make the mistake of thinking they need to work harder, do more, force things to happen in the physical world. They're trying to rewrite the movie by touching the screen, when all they really need to do is change the film in the projector. And here's what's both challenging and liberating about this understanding. You can't blame the screen for what it's showing. The screen is innocent. It's just doing its job, faithfully displaying whatever is being projected onto it. Your external circumstances are the same way. They're not the enemy. They're not punishing you. They're simply reflecting back the old programming, the outdated beliefs, the fears you internalized before you understood how consciousness creates reality. Drop a comment saying, "Changing the film," if you're ready to stop fighting the screen and start working with the source. Now, I want you to understand something critical that will shift your entire relationship with your current circumstances. Everything I've been sharing with you isn't meant to make you feel guilty or to blame you for the challenges you're facing. This isn't about pointing fingers at yourself or carrying shame for not knowing better before. The whole purpose of this revelation is liberation. It's freedom. Because if everything you're experiencing is a consequence of past states you held in your consciousness, then that means nothing in your present moment has the power to truly imprison you. You're not locked in. You're not stuck. You're not condemned to keep repeating the same patterns forever. This is where the real transformation begins. In the understanding that you can simply assume a new state and watch the shadow inevitably shift to match it. You don't have to fight your way out. You don't have to force doors open. You don't have to manipulate circumstances or convince anyone of anything. All you have to do is change the state you're occupying internally, and the external world, being the obedient reflection that it is, will have no choice but to reorganize itself around your new assumption. The shadow follows the light, always, without exception. Florence Scovel Shinn understood this deeply when she taught people to never fight conditions, but to assume the state instead. Think about the wisdom in that instruction. The condition is old. It's yesterday's news, last month's belief system, last year's fear playing out in slow motion. But the state you assume right now, that's new. That's current. That's the creative force that determines what comes next. The condition is effect. It's the result of something that already happened in consciousness. The state is cause. It's the source from where your next reality will emerge. When you truly accept this as a law governing your experience, not just as a nice spiritual idea that sounds good, everything changes. Most people hear concepts like this and think they're beautiful philosophies, inspiring thoughts to consider when life feels good. But the moment circumstances get difficult, they forget everything and fall back into despair, into fighting, into trying to fix the external situation through external means. The difference between someone who transforms their life and someone who stays stuck isn't intelligence or resources or luck. It's whether they treat these principles as absolute laws that govern reality, or as optional suggestions that only apply sometimes. When you accept that your state creates your experience as a fundamental law of consciousness, you stop despairing when you look at your bank account. You stop panicking when doors close. You stop feeling helpless when things don't go as planned. Instead, you recognize that those conditions are simply showing you the old state, the old film still playing out its final scenes. And rather than react to them, rather than give them power by fighting against them, you gently redirect your attention to the projection room of your consciousness and ask yourself a simple but powerful question. What state am I assuming right now? Because that state, not the condition you're looking at, is what will determine your next experience. Type state over condition, if this understanding is settling in for you. When you truly internalize this understanding, something remarkable happens to the way you move through your day. You start looking at your current reality with a completely different energy. Instead of anxiety, there's serenity. Instead of desperation, there's a calm knowing. You see the bills, the limitations, the obstacles, but they don't shake you anymore because you understand something most people never grasp. This reality has no choice but to transform. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And the when is simply the lag time between your internal shift and the external reorganization that must follow. You begin to carry yourself with the tranquility of someone who already knows how the story ends. Not because you're pretending or forcing positive thinking, but because you genuinely understand the mechanics of how consciousness creates experience. You know that when you change yourself, when you shift the state you're occupying, when you transform the assumptions you're holding, everything around you must necessarily change. There's no other possibility. The external world is not an independent entity with its own agenda. It's a responsive system that has to mirror whatever you're broadcasting from within. This is the hidden truth that most people resist because it places total responsibility on them. But it's also the most empowering revelation you can ever receive. External reality has no will of its own. It's not deciding to be difficult. It's not conspiring against you. It's not testing you or punishing you. Reality is malleable, plastic, and completely obedient to the state of consciousness that's engaging with it. If you maintain a state of lack, constantly thinking about what you don't have, feeling the absence of what you want, identifying as someone who struggles, reality has no choice but to bend itself into forms that match that frequency. It will show you lack because that's what you're asking for through your state. But here's where it gets exciting. If you maintain a state of abundance, feeling grateful for what already exists, identifying as someone who is provided for, assuming that opportunities flow naturally to you, reality bends to abundance. It reorganizes. Doors open. Money shows up. People appear with exactly what you need. Not because you manipulated anything or forced anything, but because the world is simply doing what it always does, reflecting back the dominant state you're holding. The world does not create your state. Your state creates the world. That's the law. That's how this works. And once you accept this, once you really let it sink in, you stop being a victim of circumstances and become the conscious architect of your experience. The impact of this shift is immediate. You stop waiting for conditions to improve before you feel better. You stop needing external validation before you claim your abundance. You stop postponing your joy until the physical evidence shows up. You reverse the entire process. You assume the state first, and then you watch patiently and confidently as reality catches up. Leave a comment saying, "I create my world," if you're embracing this power right now. So many people spend their days looking for signs from the universe. They're waiting for some external validation that they're on the right path, some cosmic confirmation that it's okay to believe in their desires, some magical signal that tells them, yes, now you can expect good things to happen. But here's what they're missing. You're not supposed to be seeking signs. You are supposed to become the sign. You are the signal that the universe reads and responds to. When you embody the state of abundance, when you carry yourself as someone who already has what they desire, when you move through the world with that quiet confidence and inner certainty, you become the sign that tells reality what to create next. And yes, there might be a delay. It may take a few days or even weeks for the shadow to fully organize itself around your new assumption. The physical world moves slower than consciousness because it has to rearrange matter, shift circumstances, move people and resources into position. But it always obeys without exception. There has never been a case where someone genuinely shifted their state and maintained it, and reality just decided not to follow. It's not possible. The law doesn't break. It doesn't take days off. It doesn't make exceptions based on your past, your current conditions, or how difficult your situation appears to be. Change your state and your life will inevitably change to match it. Now, let me show you the most powerful tool you have for shifting your state. And it's something you've been using your entire life without realizing its true impact. Imagination. Imagination has always been the door through which your future enters the present. It's not fantasy. It's not daydreaming. It's not wishful thinking. Imagination is the creative workshop of consciousness. It's the place where tomorrow is being built right now. But here's the problem. Very few people use it consciously. Most people imagine all day long without any awareness of what they're doing. They're constantly running internal movies of worst-case scenarios, replaying past failures, rehearsing future disappointments, visualizing bills they can't pay, doors that won't open, and conversations that go wrong. They imagine fear. They imagine scarcity. They imagine rejection. And then they wonder why their external world keeps confirming exactly what they've been silently feeding it through their unconscious imagination. They think they're just worrying or being realistic, or preparing for potential problems. But what they are actually doing is creating. They're using the most powerful creative force available to human beings to build more of what they don't want. Behind the scenes of their conscious mind, imagination is working overtime, faithfully producing whatever images and feelings they are dwelling on most consistently throughout the day. The revelation here is that imagination doesn't care whether you're using it consciously or unconsciously. It doesn't judge your images as good or bad, wanted or unwanted. It simply takes whatever you give it and begins the process of making it real. This is both the danger and the opportunity. The danger is that most people are accidentally creating their nightmares. The opportunity is that once you understand this, you can deliberately create your dreams. Right, conscious creator. If you're ready to use imagination intentionally from now on, what you need to understand about imagination is that nothing in the entire universe is more faithful to you than this faculty. It never fails you. It never takes a break. It never questions whether what you're imagining is good for you or bad for you, realistic or unrealistic, deserved or undeserved. Imagination simply produces. It's the most obedient servant you will ever have, working tirelessly day and night to materialize whatever you're consistently feeding it. And here's the crucial part that most people miss. Imagination produces according to the state you maintain while imagining, not according to the words you speak. You can affirm abundance 1,000 times a day, but if you're imagining scarcity while you're saying those words, guess which one wins? The imagination always. Because words are surface level. They're what you tell others and sometimes what you tell yourself to feel better. But imagination, that's where the real work is happening. That's where your future is being sculpted in the invisible realm before it becomes visible. You can say you want money while imagining yourself struggling to pay bills, and the universe will respond to the imagination, not the words. You can declare you're abundant while feeling and visualizing lack, and reality will match the feeling and the image, not the declaration. This is why imagination is considered the secret language through which the divine operates through you. It's not your efforts in the physical world that create your reality. It's not how hard you work or how much you hustle. Those things might be part of the journey, but they're not the cause. The cause is always what's happening in imagination first. Imagination is the mold, the template, the blueprint that determines which version of reality you're going to step into. You cannot imagine yourself as poor and live as rich. The two states cannot coexist. You cannot spend your mental energy imagining lack, rehearsing scarcity, visualizing closed doors, and then expect to reap abundance in the physical world. It doesn't work that way, because imagination defines the reality you enter. Think of it like this. If reality is a house with infinite rooms, each room representing a different version of your life, imagination is the key that unlocks specific doors. The room where you're financially free exists right now. The room where opportunities flow effortlessly exists right now. The room where you're living your dream life exists right now. But you can't access those rooms if you're using your imagination to keep unlocking the door to the room you're already in. Every time you imagine struggle, you're turning the key to the struggle room. Every time you imagine lack, you're entering the lack room. The rooms don't change. Your imagination determines which one you walk into. And this is where the real transformation in your journey begins. When you start using imagination deliberately, consciously, with full awareness that you're not just daydreaming, but actually constructing the template for your next experience. You're not hoping things will get better. You're actively building better through the images and feelings you entertain in your mind. Type "I choose my room" if you're understanding the power you hold right now. Florence Scovel Shinn understood this principle so deeply that she would give people a very specific instruction, and it wasn't a gentle suggestion, it was a command. She would tell them, "Sit down, close your eyes and enter the final scene." Not the journey, not the struggle, not the process of how you're going to get there. The final scene, the end result, the moment when what you desire is already done, already accomplished, already yours. She knew something that most people completely miss when they try to use imagination for manifestation. The world doesn't respond to what you desire. It doesn't care about your wishes or your desperate prayers. The world responds to what you assume is already fulfilled. This is a massive distinction that changes everything. When you imagine from a place of wanting, you're actually reinforcing the state of not having. When you imagine from a place of hoping, you're confirming to consciousness that you don't yet possess what you're hoping for. But when you enter the final scene, when you step into the moment after it's already happened, you bypass all that longing and lack. You're not asking. You're not wishing. You're simply experiencing what already is in the realm of imagination. And consciousness takes that experience as an instruction for what to create in the physical world. The scene you repeat internally is what determines your external reality, not the scene you think about once. The scene you return to again and again until it becomes so natural, so familiar, so comfortable that you feel it as true even without any external evidence supporting it. This is where most people fail with imagination. They try it once or twice, don't see immediate results, and decide it doesn't work. But the problem was never with the principle is absolute law. The problem is with the quality of the imaginative act. You have to repeat the scene until your nervous system believes it, until your subconscious mind accepts it as already done, until the feeling of having it becomes more real to you than the current evidence of not having it. This takes discipline. Not the harsh kind, but the gentle kind that keeps returning to what you've decided is true, regardless of what the physical world is currently showing you. It's about training your consciousness to dwell in the end result so consistently that the end result becomes your new normal, your new baseline, your new identity. When you do this, when you truly commit to living in the final scene through imagination, something shifts behind the scenes of your visible reality. Doors you didn't even know existed start opening. Resources appear from unexpected places. The right people show up at the right time. Not because you forced anything, but because your consciousness has accepted the fulfillment of your desire is already complete, and the universe is simply catching up to match your assumption. Drop living in the end, if you're committing to this practice starting today. But here's the element that most people leave out. The missing ingredient that makes all the difference between imagination that creates and imagination that just entertains. You don't imagine with your mind alone. You imagine with emotion. Emotion is what seals the state. Emotion is the signature that tells consciousness, this is what I'm claiming as real. Think about it this way, you can visualize wealth all day long. Picture money in your bank account, see yourself living in abundance. But if you're feeling fear while you're doing it, if there's anxiety underneath the images, if your emotional state is still broadcasting lack and worry, then you're not actually imagining wealth. You're imagining scarcity with a thin veneer of hopeful pictures on top. Imagination is the command you send out. But feeling is what signs and seals that command. A person who imagines prosperity while feeling unworthy is actually sending out the signal of unworthiness. A person who visualizes success while feeling doubt is broadcasting doubt, not success. The images matter, yes, but the emotional frequency you're in while holding those images matters even more. This is why some people can do all the visualization exercises, create all the vision boards, repeat all the affirmations, and still see no change in their reality. They're imagining with their head, but not with their heart. They're going through the motions without the emotion that actualizes the vision. This lack of authentic feeling is the single greatest bottleneck to manifestation. Why? Because you are not just painting a picture. You are trying to inhabit a new reality. If your heart remains disconnected from the scene you've painted, your subconscious treats it like a distant story. Beautiful, maybe, but not true for you. It's time to bridge that gap between your logical mind and your emotional core. The reason that bridge often fails to connect brings us to the next vital creator mistake. Now, let me tell you about another critical mistake that keeps people stuck in the observer role when they should be stepping into the creator role. Most people fail with imagination because they imagine as spectators rather than participants. They watch the scene like they're sitting in an audience, viewing someone else's life. They see themselves from the outside receiving money, experiencing success, living abundantly. But that perspective keeps you removed from the experience. It keeps you as the person watching your desires happen to some future version of you, instead of being the person to whom it's happening right now. The transformation happens when you stop watching the scene and start entering it. It's not about seeing yourself receiving that check. It's about feeling yourself receiving it. When you become a participant in your imagination, when you step into the first-person experience, everything shifts. You're no longer hoping for something to happen to you. You're experiencing it as already happening. And that experience becomes the mold that physical reality must fill. Now, let me tell you about another critical mistake that keeps people stuck in the observer role when they should be stepping into the creator role. Most people fail with imagination because they imagine as spectators rather than participants. They watch the scene like they're sitting in an audience, viewing someone else's life. They see themselves from the outside receiving money, experiencing success, living abundantly. But that perspective keeps you removed from the experience. It keeps you as the person watching your desires happen to some future version of you, instead of being the person to whom it's happening right now. The transformation happens when you stop watching the scene and start entering it. It's not about seeing yourself receiving that check. It's about feeling yourself receiving it. It's not about observing yourself in the new house. It's about being in that house, touching the walls, feeling the space around you, breathing in the reality of it. When you become a participant in your imagination, when you step into the first-person experience rather than third-person observation, everything shifts. You're no longer hoping for something to happen to you. You're experiencing it as already happening. And that experience becomes the mold that physical reality must fill. This is when imagination crosses over from fantasy into creation. When you breathe within the scene you're imagining, when you savor the relief as if it's already occurred, when you feel the gratitude for what already is rather than for what might be, you activate the creative power of consciousness at its highest level. You're not playing pretend. You're not lying to yourself. You're actually inhabiting a parallel reality that exists right now in potential. And by inhabiting it with full emotional presence, you're pulling it from potential into manifestation. Right? I'm stepping in. If you're ready to become a participant in your desired reality. So if you want to receive money today, if you want abundance to show up in your physical experience, here's what you need to do. Stop waiting for the world to bring it to you and start feeling like it has already arrived. Not hoping it will arrive. Not wishing it would arrive. Not even believing it's on its way. Feeling it is already here. This is the shift that changes everything. You imagine the deposit, yes, but more importantly, you feel the relief that comes with seeing that deposit in your account. You imagine the opportunity, absolutely, but you dwell in the certainty that accompanies having that opportunity in your hands. You imagine the bill paid, but you live in the gratitude of someone who no longer carries that weight. Do you see the difference? Most people imagine the thing but stay emotionally in the state of not having the thing. They picture abundance while feeling lack. They visualize success while carrying the stress of failure. But you have to make the emotional leap. You have to be willing to feel the end result now, even though your current circumstances are screaming the opposite at you. This is where faith comes in, not religious faith necessarily, but faith in the law of consciousness. Faith that when you genuinely occupy the state of already having what you desire, reality has no choice but to conform to that state. And yes, I know the physical world can feel frustratingly slow sometimes. You make the internal shift and you want to see the results immediately. You change your state and you're looking for evidence the next day. But here's what you need to understand. Imagination is immediate. The moment you assume something is true in consciousness, it's done in the realm of causation. The physical world just needs time to catch up because it's dealing with matter, with circumstances, with the logistics of rearranging your external experience to match your internal assumption. But it always catches up. Always. The world will inevitably reflect back to you whatever you sign internally through your sustained imagination and emotion. This is why, if you genuinely want to transform your life, you can't keep focusing all your energy on trying to change what's outside. You have to start by changing the inner film, the internal movie that's playing on repeat in your consciousness. Because it's through imagination that your future enters your present experience. Every single thing that exists in the physical world right now was once just an image in someone's imagination. It all started as an invisible idea that someone held on to long enough and felt deeply enough that it eventually materialized. The abundant life you desire is not something you have to create from scratch. It's something you need to tune into, step into, and emotionally inhabit until your physical circumstances reorganize themselves to match it. Type already mine if you're claiming your desired reality right now in consciousness. Now, here's where you need to be really careful because this is where most people get derailed on their journey. Appearances will always try to convince you that they are the final truth. They're loud. They're insistent. They demand your attention and your belief. Your bank balance screams that you're broke. The pile of bills on your desk shouts that you're behind. The closed doors in your life declare that opportunities don't exist for you. And all of this feels so real, so solid, so undeniable that it's easy to surrender to it and accept it as your permanent reality. But here's the hidden truth that breaks the spell. None of this has independent life. The conditions you're seeing today are merely photographs, frozen images of what you believed yesterday, last week, last month. They're snapshots of old consciousness, old assumptions, old fears that have now materialized into form. And just like a photograph captures a moment that's already gone, your current circumstances are showing you a moment of consciousness that has already passed. They have no authority over what comes next unless you keep giving them that authority. The problem is that when you look too intently at appearances, when you stare at your current reality as if it's telling you the truth about your future, you hypnotize yourself. You fall into a trance where you forget the most fundamental principle. Everything physical arrived late. Nothing you're looking at right now is actually happening in real time. It's all past. The money situation you're seeing today was created by yesterday's thoughts. The closed doors you're facing were built by last week's doubts. You are literally seeing today what was yesterday's thought, emotion, or assumption. So, how could any of this possibly have power over your now? How could something that's already finished determine what you create going forward? It can't. The only reason it seems like it can is because you keep looking at it, reacting to it, and believing in it, and by doing so, you keep recreating the same old reality over and over again. You have to learn to look at your current circumstances with detachment, recognizing them for what they are. Echoes, shadows, memories that have taken physical form. They're showing you where you were, not where you're going. And the moment you stop giving them your emotional investment, they begin to lose their grip on your future. Comment: past has no power. If you're breaking free from the hypnosis of appearances. Florence Scovel Shinn had a phrase that cuts through all the confusion. She would tell people firmly, stop consulting the flesh. By flesh, she meant the visible world, the physical circumstances, the tangible evidence you can see and touch. She understood something profound. The visible always lies. Not because it's malicious, but simply because it's delayed. The visible world is always showing you what has already been decided in consciousness. It's never showing you what's being created in this present moment. It's always behind, always lagging, always displaying yesterday's decisions as if they're today's reality. When you look at your bank account and let that determine how you feel about your financial future, you're consulting the flesh. When you see closed doors and let that convince you that opportunities don't exist for you, you're consulting the flesh. You're asking the past to tell you about the future, and the past only knows how to repeat itself. The real transformation happens when you stop giving the visible world veto power over your internal decisions. When you stop checking with your circumstances before you allow yourself to feel abundant. When you stop waiting for evidence before you assume the state you desire. This is where your power lies. In your ability to maintain your chosen state, regardless of what the physical world is currently displaying. When you react to difficulty as if it were permanent, you're not just observing it, you're reaffirming it, reinforcing it, giving it permission to continue. Every time you surrender emotionally to what you see, you're actually feeding those appearances with your attention and emotion. You're giving them the energy they need to persist. Appearances cannot survive without your attention. But when you stand firm in your internal state despite what appearances are showing you, the old reality starts to dissolve because it's not receiving the attention it needs to maintain itself. You're directing all your attention, all your feeling, all your belief toward the new state you've chosen to occupy. And reality, being the obedient mirror that it is, has no choice but to begin reorganizing itself around this new focus. Leave attention creates. If you're grasping this power you've always had. The world is an obedient mirror. That's all it is. It doesn't think about what to show you. It simply reflects whatever state you're occupying consistently. Why would you ever fight with the reflection when you could simply change what's standing in front of it? A single instant of genuine inner change is worth more than 1,000 external efforts. When you make a real internal shift, the external world reorganizes itself with minimal effort on your part. This is the real present, the moment where creation is actually happening, the space where you consciously choose your state regardless of what appearances are showing you. This brings me to what I call silent discipline. This is where so many people stumble. They get excited, they do the imaginative work for a day or two, but then reality doesn't immediately change, and they quietly slip back into their old state. Silent discipline doesn't demand physical effort or exhausting hustle. What it demands is permanence of state. It asks you to hold steady in the consciousness you've chosen, even when nothing around you is confirming that choice yet. Most people can't tolerate the gap between assumption and manifestation. The discomfort of believing something that isn't yet visible drives them crazy, so they retreat back to the old state of lack. But you can't create anything new from an old state. The breakthrough happens when you develop the capacity to remain faithful to your new state longer than the old reality can maintain itself. Because that old reality is only staying in place because you keep returning to the state that created it. The moment you stop feeding it, it begins to weaken and dissolve. Right? I remain faithful. If you're committing to this silent discipline no matter how long it takes. Florence Scovel Shinn taught that sleep is the most powerful time to consolidate a new reality. Why? Because when you fall asleep in the desired state, when you drift off while feeling and assuming that your wish is already fulfilled, you're bypassing all the conscious resistance that normally fights against your new assumptions. The sleeping mind doesn't argue. It simply accepts whatever state you bring into it. And what the subconscious accepts during sleep, the world must reflect. What state are you occupying as you drift into unconsciousness? If you intentionally enter your desired reality through imagination, if you feel the relief and gratitude of already having what you want, then sleep becomes your most powerful ally in transformation. I know this might sound exhausting, but true permanence is gentle yet constant. It's not about perfection or never having a moment of doubt. All you need to do is return. You notice you're worrying about money, and without judgment, you gently redirect your attention back to the state of abundance. You catch yourself imagining failure, and instead of beating yourself up, you simply shift back to imagining success. Every time you make that choice to return to your desired state, you're weakening the old patterns and strengthening the new one. You're teaching your consciousness that this new state is where you live now. The more consistently you return to it, even if you have to do it 50 times a day at first, the more natural it becomes until eventually you just are that state. And when that happens, manifestation isn't something you do. It's something that happens automatically. Drop I keep returning. If you're embracing this gentle practice of constancy, when you genuinely practice this silent discipline, things start moving effortlessly. Doors that were locked suddenly open. People appear with exactly the opportunities you need. Money shows up from unexpected directions. This is the moment when you realize you are not a beggar in this universe. You are the cause. You are the source. Everything you desire already exists, and it exists within you right now. Stop negotiating with the old reality. Stop explaining why you can't have what you want yet. Instead, assume the posture of someone who has already received everything they desire. Feel the relief, the gratitude, the tranquility of knowing it's done. Let that become your dominant emotional state. The universe responds without resistance to the state you sustain. That's the state that becomes your reality. That's the consciousness that determines your experience. Once you really accept that you are the cause and everything else is effect, your entire journey transforms from struggle into flow. Comment, I am the cause, if you're stepping fully into this power today. If you made it all the way here, I want you to know that wasn't an accident either. The fact that you stayed through this entire message tells me you're genuinely ready for this shift. If this message resonated with you, I'd love for you to subscribe to this channel. Hit that like button if you found value in this. And here's what I'd love from you right now. Leave a comment saying, "This message was meant for me." It's a powerful declaration of your readiness. Now there's a video right here that goes even deeper into how to maintain your state when life gets challenging, when appearances are screaming at you to give up. Click on it and continue this journey with me over there. I'll meet you in that next video, and we'll keep building this transformation together. Remember this. The shift has already begun. You are no longer the person who waits for permission. You are the architect of your destiny. Click the video. Stop watching your life and start living your power. Your abundance is waiting right there. Let's go.